So.
Ian, do you want to come over here a little bit closer to save all the movement around? Is that the easiest
that'd
thing?
be good, thank you.
I would say mind the cables, but you're used to that anyway. So.
We're all wireless all day.
Ah, yeah.
Apart from the banjo player.
Excellent stuff. So each of you have got a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they got
wonderful. Couple each, lovely stuff. Okay. So we're at Beaminster School today for the opening of the new music suite. I'm with a band from the school, Pizza for Dogs. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hiya.
And head of music, Andy.
Hi.
And also the wonderful Ian Gillan. Hello, Ian.
I'm auditioning today.
Are you? Do you reckon that you're going to make the band, make the cut?
I have no idea. I think they've probably got a singer.
So we're here today for the opening of the new music suite. First of all, can I just ask you, what do you think of it?
Very impressive. Very impressive. But all of this is no good without the enthusiasm. So hopefully that'll all go together and everyone will be happy.
And you've been treated to some performances, haven't you, today in all the different music rooms. What do you think about some of the talent that you've had?
Well, it's amazing. I mean, most people actually have a bent for something or another, either engineering or music or art. And so you can tell at a very early age if people enjoy singing and playing, then they do it without needing to be sort of led to it. They just naturally, and if you give them the facility, it'll flourish.
Absolutely, and it's such a wonderful facility, isn't it, Andy?
Oh yeah, I mean we're very, very lucky here, and to be able to bring young children into a situation where they can easily make music and not have to worry about it is just a privilege for me. So.
Excellent. Now, I'm not asking all the questions today, which will make a good change. So, Pizza for Dogs, you've got some questions, haven't you?
Absolutely,
so, who's got the first one for Ian?
Am I going first? Okay. Obviously, you're a rock and roll legend yourself. Is rock and roll dead?
It's not really a genre. I don't think. I think it's more of a state of existence.
Yeah.
It's rock and roll for me is everything from Chopin, Beethoven to Jimmy Smith to big band swing, folk music, dance music, sea shanties and humour.
Yeah.
And I think you saw the first elements of rock and roll with people like Dean Martin and the big bands that they used to. So is it dead? Probably. But I think the way music is made now and the way it's evolving is completely different. But it's still expressive, and it's incumbent upon you as a musician to be expressive. And I also think that every generation has some sort of psychological vandalism to destroy what went before, particularly their parents, not the grandparents, but the parents, to clear the decks for their ineptitude. And I think as they practice and get better and better, they can either make their statements or retire gracefully and let the next lot come along. So what you've seen over the generations is it's all rock and roll really. It just goes under a different name.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not really the answer you wanted, but the only one I've got.
Tough first question. Who's next?
Soulmate. Yeah. Well, as a youngster, who are your kind of biggest influences? And I guess now, who do you kind of listen to currently?
Now,
Yeah.
I don't absorb much these days in
No.
terms of music.
Sure.
I absorb people and situations, never short of inspiration for lyrics, because every day something interesting happens. It's either a narrative, or you can use the whole concept of impressionism for lyrics, because you can condense 20 pages of a story into a couple of verses and a chorus. So that's my element, and the influences are the people I meet during the day. During life, you absorb the most influences during your formative years. And so for me, that would have been my family. My granddad was an opera singer. My uncle was a jazz pianist. I was a voice soprano in the church choir, and so I was engulfed with music. So it came quite naturally. My early influences were Elvis Presley, the young Elvis Presley. It was actually, it wasn't just me. He influenced millions and millions and millions of people, including opera singers and many others in different forms. So influences carry on through your life, but life changes. In my first professional band, I remember my first interview I did, and they said, "What's your favourite colour? What's your favourite car? What's your favourite film star?" Well, as you get older, life becomes a little more nuanced, and So you develop ideas, and I didn't have any anecdotes to tell them. Tell us a story. But now I could talk all day, so things do change. So influences also change, and it's important, I think, when you're starting off, to listen to everything, not just what's popular, and not just of your own generation, but to dig deep and to find something. Yeah, because you never know what's going to touch off a spark inside yourself. It may not be what's available. It may be something you have to dig for. So influence is a big thing, very important.
Thank you.
Great question. Okay, who's next?
Sure. Obviously, you used to tour very heavily, and you still do. What is or was your favourite tour or gig that you ever played at?
The best one was the first one with Deep Purple in 1969 in a club. I think there were about 25 people there in the Speakeasy in Margaret Street in London, or 100 if you count Keith Moon. It was, I cried, I had tears running down my face. I looked at Roger Glover, our bass player, and we joined at the same time. And it was something it was a major step. We'd been professional for some years, we'd made a lot of records, but no, it was always contrived. We'd always try and put bands together and try and make something that worked. And always trying to think of it commercially. But this was something that had no commercial aspect at all, because it was pure music, and it was exactly what we've been looking for. So that was my favourite gig, and the dates that followed were all new, and a learning curve that was very steep. But it turned out to be, if I can use another cliche, a good springboard for the future.
Brilliant.
So tours and incidents over the years have been deeply ingrained in my mind. But we do 5 cities a week, and so you don't have time to dwell on it too much. I will, when I retire to a cottage called Gillan, I'll write them all down again.
So carrying on touring, like, what would you say is obviously it's great, but what's the worst part or the most annoying part of touring?
We found ourselves in some pretty grim situations, and we have been treated as second-class citizens an awful lot, particularly in the early days. I remember we moved into larger venues and that had not been used for music performances before. I'm talking about basketball arenas and sports arenas and stuff like that. And we'd be using the changing rooms as a dressing room, and you go and have a shower and there's no hot water. And we'd find out, I overheard a conversation once, because we were always complaining there's never any hot water in these places. Why is that? And the promoter was talking to the hall manager and said, well, they never wash anyway, do they? What's the point? So it was shocking to me to realise that people thought of us like that. And of course the long hair had a lot to do with it, I think, at the time, and the fact that we were a new generation. And you do make your mark one way or the other. It's not necessarily good or bad, but I think the worst things you have to overcome are the boredom, the waiting around, waiting, and our drummer says, this is what we get paid for. We don't get paid for the music, we get paid for doing this rubbish. Like, it's just standing in airports, waiting, always waiting around for something to happen. So, but you get used to it, and you occupy your time as profitably as you can, so it's not a bad life.
Nice, brilliant.
Any more questions, guys?
Yeah, okay. So obviously you've seen you've been a musician and a high-school musician throughout the change from vinyl to CD to
digital, yeah, 1982.
How do you think that the you mentioned the internet and how music distribution is changing? Do you think that's a good change? Technology
always has a big part to play in music. If you think about it, prior to '82, when the first CDs came out, the first digital music, it was shocking. I heard Machine Head on a CD for the first time and nearly cried. It sounded so awful. It took years for the engineers to understand how to work with digital technology, how to make it warm, and how to give it some depth and texture. Prior to that, technology played a big part. You listen, I mean, Leo Fender played a big part in electrifying music. Jim Marshall, his name is still in this room today, used to live next door to me, and I used to go to his shop on a Saturday morning in West London, and I bought my first PA amp from Jim. And it's a long story, so I won't go into it, but it's in the book. But technology plays a big part. I think what's happened is that digital recording has given you unlimited number of tracks. The technique for recording, making records in my time, in my early days, was to learn the music, rehearse it, and go to the studio and record it. My first session was at Pi Studios in Marble Arch, and we had 9 until 12 in the morning booked. So being keen as mustard, we turned up at 8 o'clock with a van and our gear, and the doorman said, "Where do you think you're going?" And we said, "Well, we're going to get set up in the studio, so we're ready to go bang on the dot at 9 o'clock. And he said, no, the session is from 9 till 12. That includes the load-in, the setup, the run-through, the recording, the mixing, the balancing, the breakdown of the equipment, and getting your asses out of here." So you've got 3 hours to do all of that. So with digital technology, you can put a drum track down until it's right. You can play anything you want until it's right. You don't have to all be together. I think there are negative sides to it, insofar as it's tempting for producers and engineers to fill every part of the spectrum of sound, so that there's no emptiness, there's no feeling of a room, and you don't hear so much these days the intake of breath at the beginning of a line, or the scratch of a guitar string, or the squeak of a drum pedal. Those elements, I think, are, in a way, makes things a bit too good, but all in all, it's a marvellous thing, because it opens the door to so many more people to start at an early age. And if you can practice, I always say, when you're learning an instrument, try and get the best one you can to start with, because sometimes it's so discouraging if you've got a guitar with a bad action, it's going to hurt your fingers. And you're not going to be pleased by what you're hearing. You can strum away all day and it still sounds awful. But you get a nice guitar with a good action, and it sounds pretty good pretty quickly. So it all changes, and it always will. And I heard somebody say a couple of years ago, a well-known producer said, in the next few years we can expect that the world's leading musician is not able to play an instrument. And it took a few minutes for that to sink in. I realise what he means now. So art and music is within you, and however you do it, this is only a medium, and it's a medium for your expression. So the easier it gets, I think, is probably we're going to produce more and finer players and writers than we did before, only because the opportunity is there, and that's very important. So everything changes, it always will, and it'll change again in your lifetime, except probably at a more rapid pace than it did in mine, because everything's accelerating. So there's no real answer to that, but other than times change, and we should accept it. Change doesn't always have to be for an improvement. Everyone of my generation always complains that there shouldn't be change unless it's an improvement. Well, it's a bit like Brexit. You really don't know what lies ahead. You only know what you've got at the moment. So you've got to take that dive into the unknown, I think, and you can soon find out. But with digital, you've got a safety net, haven't you? Because it's not just all there on a tape. The moment you do it and get out of here, that's it. Good or bad, that's it. You can always make it better on digital recordings. Good subject. Could talk about that all day. Anyway, thanks for your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Done?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Good luck, guys.